Grüßt euch. How are you guys? Gonna talk in English today. The topic is how to create killer fake news, so let's just dive into it. Bit of background, I have three hats. I'm an explorer at Deconium, which is a Volkswagen participation looking into future mobility, the relationship of mobility with urbanization, sustainability, games, playful being. I'm also a design researcher at an Australian university, Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, and I am also teaching coaching classes at a university in Switzerland, the University of St. Gallen. So if you ever want anything from me, you need to tell me which hat I should wear. Sometimes I can wear both or three, doesn't matter really. So when I heard about Children of Doom and I was having a discussion with Boris about the topic, I remembered something that I did early on in my work, in my research actually, my master's thesis, which had to do with the topic of doom. And I found this old photo on the internet. Matter of fact, I don't have the presentations anymore. All the material's gone. And this photo, as you can see here, displays a doomsday bomb. And that we self-built following instructions from the internet back in the day. We're talking, I think, 2001, where we built a game basically to let people explore how it is to use handheld pocket PCs, as they were called back in the day, and working together to basically trace a bomb that had been hidden in a University of the Arts, basically as part of a big anti-art conspiracy with the objective to blow up the university, right? To hinder art and design forever and ever. Now that didn't work out because I'm still standing here, and obviously that was our own game, but I found it quite funny that I have a bit of a history using and thinking about the doomsday and using it as a vehicle, a putty, basically, playfully so, to reach certain goals. So just a bit more background, and I will skip all that and come to the whole killer fake news topic. I have been working on using play and games for a while, in using them in health. For example, for diabetes type 2 patients, we've created a game that made people be more physically active, called Mission Schweinehund. We did this for Novartis back in the day. Here on the upper, the lower left, you see Gamification Congress, BISplay, a congress that we've been running for 8 years now in Karlsruhe in Germany, bringing together people to showcase and to discuss topics all around play and games and how they affect society, arts, yes, and businesses. We have on the upper right now a card game that I will be using in a second with you called the Future Deck. Self-created method, so-called method deck to used usually for ideation. That's what we'll do today. And then on the lower right we've got something that we're sort of, I guess proud of. We were part of the journey that ultimately led to the release of the launch of a spin out of Audi, where we've built prototypes basically to use virtual reality in the car, where the scene that you see that's rendered into the goggles, the Oculus Rift in that case, are matched to the driving situation. So when you accelerate, the scene accelerates, it's interactive, and when you slow down, when you brake, then you're braking in the scene, etc. So it's quite, I guess, it's a little bit like a railed roller coaster ride with stuff that happens and that you can interact with. Now, why at all playing games? Well, I think, and I'm probably not the only one, and you see this probably every day when you use Facebook, was just mentioned, or using services that are out there, that they increasingly come with what we could consider playful and gameful elements, right? They nudge, they make you do things, they incentivize, etc. If we could call these systems games, I have big doubts about that, but they use elements that we are familiar with from games and play, right? So there seems to be a certain relationship, and a very tight relationship, which you could argue goes back to, the olden days, co-evolution of games and computers, computers as rule processing systems, being very, very handy to process games because they are rule processing systems. Well, that's all nice and dandy, so this is my field. Now, what does that have to do with fake news? What we're not going to do, and I've seen a talk earlier today where a gentleman also used this kind of mechanic in the talk. What we're not going to do is we're not going to hack time. I do apologize for that. So if you're here to hack time and you saw somewhere mentioned that we would hack time, not today, sorry. But it probably would be a good idea. Having heard so many talks today about time being the most precious of all parameters that we have at our hand, maybe it would be a good thing to be able to hack time. So please, everyone, maybe concentrate on that. We're also not going to do or talk about empirical backgrounds of fake news, because others have done a much better job than I could do, because my field is design research. Well, yes, we do work with empirical material, but in this case, I do highly recommend a talk that Konrad Lischka and Christian Stöcker have given at Republika in 2017. So I think you'll have the slides afterwards, because this is, of course, quite nonsensical here with a lot of letters. So I could have done a better job to give you a readout, but that's a really, really good talk. The essence of that talk is that it's not easy to talk about fake news. The term itself is somewhat misrepresenting what's happening there. Maybe a better way to talk about news fabrication is to talk about disinformation, right? And fake news aren't new, right? Propaganda, disinformation have always, for a long, long time, been used in all kinds of contexts to achieve certain goals, to persuade, to nudge people to certain directions. So this graph here, or this image, this figure from Konrad's and Christian's talk, basically tries to capture all the elements that come together, the media that are curated in a certain way. Captology meaning a kind of a domain where people are using behavioral psychology to nudge you towards using certain things, certain media. Why don't you do this? If you read more articles, you get 10 for free, or God knows what, right? And then there's a lot of other stakeholders in here, there's bots, etc. And they said basically it's quite complicated, but as we found today several times, a lot of the debate and the discourse about fake news has to do with ethics that we're lacking. I heard earlier, I overheard someone saying we need a package that contains ethics to be able to talk about sensibly about fake news, and maybe that's something that I'll end up with, but you'll see in a second. So that's not what we're going to do, but also, what we're not going to do is we're not going to quote all those fantastic websites that are basically doing a very good job at screening and detecting bias that is inserted into how news and everything, texts basically, are being put together, and how we read them, and where they come from, what their agenda is, right? So here is a list of news detecting bias screening websites that I really do highly recommend. For example, NewsGuard Tech is something that is a startup basically that is trying to earn money from the browser makers. So the idea is that it's becoming a plugin that you have in the browser that would tell you where, if you go to a certain news outlet, okay, this news outlet is likely to fabricate false information. Others are doing a very, very good job at sort of showcasing bias on a spectrum from the far left to the far right. I know that this is a hot topic, so a lot of what I'm saying you might question, but let's just assume that fake news come with certain bias, and you can talk about that bias and sort of structure it in a certain fashion, right? Scientifically, you would say we just stand back and we do not assume that there's a wrong or there's a right. There is, as we've seen with CRISPR, it can be used towards something very positive, and it can be used towards something very negative. So the same is true for whatever type of information we're getting out there into the world, right? So that's why it's very important to have these sites, and in a way they are a reply, an answer to the question, how do we know whether something has been fabricated or not? Now, long introduction, let's get to killer fake news. Killer fake news, I thought we could talk about in 4 levels through, firstly, looking at a fantastic game, and that's where the fake news angle and the play and game angle come together, that has been done by an activist group called Drog from the Netherlands, called Bad News. They've done this as part of a research project with the University of Cambridge. We'll start with that, then we'll together make fake news with a card deck that I've brought along, with the goal to really doom us, right? Or undoom us. And then we will use a very interesting text generator, an artificial intelligence model called GPT-2 that has been released by OpenAI, charity, but it's also working for profit, based in the US. And then ultimately we'll talk a little bit about the topic of ethics. So bad news. Let's go and jump into bad news real quick by opening the website that will get us to the game. Can you all see the game and the website? Do you have to move this? Do you have to move the window? Uh-huh. Oh, I see.
Yeah, you can see. You can please now.
Yep, that would be better, please. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Are you having a good time here? This fantastic scenery?
Yeah.
It's quite beautiful. I'm not allowed to drink because I'm here by car.
Can you just, is it possible?
Yeah? Super. Thank you so much. So to provide a bit of background, this is a game that has been made, as I said, by Drog, and the idea that these guys have is to teach people about the mechanics of fake news. So the goal that we have here is to become fake news tycoons, right? So let's just get started. And we're not going to play it fully. Hi there, good to see you. So I'll say, hey. You're here for the position of disinformation fake news tycoon, is that correct? Yep, that's right. You're probably frustrated about something, right? Aren't we all? You can get started by using Twitter to vent. Should we post a frustrated tweet? Yeah. Oh, come on! Yeah. This government is a complete and utter failure. Resign, loses. I'm not angry enough about the government. Tweet this? Yeah, let's tweet it. Look, and you've probably seen here on the left that your followers went up and your credibility also went up a little bit, which is the goal. You need to be as credible as possible, and of course you need to have followers because otherwise you won't be able to distribute your fake news. So your constructive criticism of the government got you a few followers, and more followers means more influence. What do I do next? Well, people don't find you very credible yet. To gain some real influence, you'll need to raise your credibility. Are we ready? Yeah. You don't seem to be ready. Come on. Yes, great to hear. But first, would you like to take part in a study on fake news recognition? No, we won't do that because that's the scientific part that's built into the game. No worries, of course. You'll now continue with the rest of the game. Got it? To gain notoriety, we can start by borrowing someone else's credibility. What do you want to do? Fake an official Twitter account, impersonate someone important. What do you want to do? Okay, raise your arms for impersonate now. Yeah, 50 feet probably. Okay, Twitter account? Yeah, less. Clearly. Of course. Donald J. Trump. After long deliberation with my generals, I've decided to declare war on North Korea. Okay, tweet this, come on. War with North Korea is just realistic enough to worry people. Did you notice Trump's slightly different username? You can scroll back up to check. So let's double check, do you see? Trump with an N. Got it. Looks like you fooled some Twitter users. Let's have a look at how they're reacting. Oh my God, is he serious? Please, Donald, don't nuke him. Move on. Got him. How are you feeling? Do we have moral objections? No. No. But you can't keep imitating people forever. What's the next step? GoPro? Wonderful idea. Where do you begin? Start a blog? Start a news site? What do you want to do? News site. Every serious news site has a name. What's yours? The Cosmos Post? Yeah, well, yeah, let's do it. Not bad. What will be your job title at the Cosmos Post? Editor? Anonymous? I'll go for editor. Looking good, Chief, but the Cosmos Post still needs a slogan. Now online, bursting the mainstream media bubble. That's a good one, isn't it? The Cosmos, look, we've got way more followers there. The basis of the fake news empire. And now we've earned a badge. And some are laughing because they're reading the irony that this game also works with. It's really working with the idea that it is in and by itself a game for social impact, or social impact game. At the same time, it sort of jazzes on the whole gamification and hot air bubble around gamification, that giving you a badge. Now, I will skip all the other badges that we've got. Do you see this now? Very good. And I've put together all the badges that we can earn in this game to shed a light on what are the mechanics that we will see in designing fake news. Impersonation, emotion is the second. Making people angry, fishing for empathy, and for fear. Quite obvious, right? But still. Polarization, saying something that's so far left or far right that you sort of divide the camps. Conspiracy always works. Conspiracy theory is super. And fifthly, we do have discredit. Just discrediting people, like we've just seen fantastically done with Mr. Strache in Austria. You've read about that, right? They trapped Mr. Strache into a made-up situation with him assuming that he was talking to a Russian oligarch's daughter or something, who was offering to basically support his case. He's a far-wing politician there, and of course it was just made up. So that, and leaking the video of that meeting is, an enormous way of discrediting someone. To be exact, the person discredited himself, which is not fake news. No, it's quite real, isn't it? And trolling, right? Just going after people, firing and attacking them continuously. That's another way to just keeping up the intensity. Now that we've seen this, I would like to play a game with you, of course, naturally. And we'll switch to this camera, please. And you tell me if you see this. Do you see what's here? And my finger? Yes, sure, no stress. Super. So this is a game called the Future Deck. The Future Deck is just a set of cards. You'll find these types of what are called method decks. You've probably even created one yourself all around. There's plenty of them. This is mine. And the idea is here to create new products, new ideas, solutions to issues. You can exchange certain cards or substitute them with your own cards around the futures that we want to live in, right? So I'll just very quickly lead you through the categories. We do have these cards here, which are the objective, and there's plenty of ways to play this game. We'll choose the absolute world domination idea that we have to follow, the objective, because we want to create absolute super duper killer news, killer fake news. We do have technologies here that we understand are going to change our ways of lives, augmented reality, big data, etc., brain-computer interface, etc., etc. We do have so-called growth markets from studies. So growth markets are markets that are economically viable and growing, right? Where sometimes I'm inserting something like that, your own growth idea, etc. These are impacts here, the red ones, impacts that change the course of what's happening. There are some that are stupid and silly. Pizza, peace is not silly, but it's a good card to have. Alcohol, Armageddon, that's what we're aiming for today. And baby, beauty, well, human-made disaster. Few of the topics today are in the cards here. And we do have ethics cards here. Ethics cards are cards that are all about virtues from the West, from the East. Does this, the stuff that we come up with generate modesty, kindness, hope, etc. And these cards are what I call rooftop cards. They are unexpected stuff happening, like aliens landing or a countdown, or there's energy abundance, or it's a parallel universe, immortality, that kind of stuff. So what I'd like to do with you guys is I would like to create, and you don't see this yet, but you'll see it when we switch back, a problem statement really quick, and I've come up with a suggestion, and then we'll use one of the topics here today and come up with a fake news, a killer fake news that will drive the world into an apocalypse. You ready for that? Yeah. Yeah, good, great. So, yeah, who said yeah? Yeah. You said yeah? Good. It's a game, guys, okay? Just saying. Not for real. Because my kids would go, oh, that's fantastic, let's go for the apocalypse, Dad. What does that mean? That doesn't matter, whatever, let's go. They would, trust me. A few topics that we've heard today are climate crisis, species extinction, asteroid collision, pandemic, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, alternate universe, and insert your topic. So maybe a topic of your choice. So is there anything specific you would like to choose to create a cool killer fake news with me and the deck? Cry it out now.
Haggis.
What is that?
Haggis.
Haggis, as in the Scottish, oh fuck man. Who has, okay, we need to clarify the haggis question. Who in this audience has had haggis before? Did you like it? Me too. Okay, would you do us the honor to explain quickly, or do you, because you suggested it, what is haggis?
I'm not sure.
Innards. Innards. It's a lot to do with innards. So, as my understanding of having been very made drunk by a Scottish friend of mine, taken to a Scottish pub in Melbourne, is eat this. It's like, okay, sure, whatever. Haggis is like a pot, like an Eintopf in German. You throw a stew, right? Where you throw everything. No, is that correct? You're Scottish.
No, I'm English.
What is haggis then? Tell us.
Haggis is grains that is soaked in blood that is cooked in a sheep stone.
Ah, so there's no, what's that? Is that true?
You have like 3 minutes
Much. Well, we'll handle in 3 minutes. Okay, so very quickly, we'll accept the haggis challenge, and we'll go, okay, so we want to create killer fake news around haggis, and what we'll choose here very quickly is a technology that will deliver the fake news. that is part of the fake news. You ready? I'll choose for you. Shrinking microcontrollers, like the controller that Elsa inserted into her hand. And we'll use something that's a growth market real quick. One market where that takes place. Digital delivery of health. Now, haggis will doom the world. Is that right? That's sort of the stance, yeah? Okay, good. And how do we do this with health and the microcontroller? Anyone? Yep.
We monitor people's health by microcontrollers, and because haggis is like the most healthy thing to eat, everybody has to eat it, and the one that doesn't eat haggis is incarcerated or something like that.
Yes, and that's like a made-up thing by the haggis producing industry, a little bit like Lebertran, if you remember, and which I never had, but you know, it's okay. And that leads to the ultimate doomsday because people will be so fed up by the haggis that they start waging war. So the news is, what's the news then? Haggis is the healthiest dish to eat ever, and from now on there's a law that declares that everyone has to do that. And the Scots and the British will be the first ones to sort of not like that, potentially. Can we, switch back? I will show you what I will not show you today. In creating, yes please. We could, of course, switch this around and say, what are ways to undoom creating, using games and play? Another way that I would like to invite you to try out, because we will not have the time here on stage to do this today, is to use what's called GPT-2, which is basically a text generator by OpenAI, the organization I had mentioned earlier, where basically what they've done is they've created a model that is so powerfully predicting the next word that is likely happening in a sentence after you type in a sentence, such as a question. It could be the beginning of a poem, or it could be a fake news or a real news, whatever. And then it really creates legible text. And a very accessible way to do this is by going to, and sorry I can't show you this again, but I'll want to end on a certain note, is to go here, but you can't see this, but this is the website talk2transformer.com. Talk2Transformer, because Transformer is the name of the architecture that sits behind the model, and it's absolutely stunning what this does. So and I'll type this, how do we drive the world into the apocalypse? And you might have seen and heard that they held back the research and the full model, Hydranten. Sorry, I have to choose Hydranten. Yeah, that's the captcha. The captcha is Hydranten. And I will read this to you, what this artificially created text says. The answer is in how we build and operate nuclear devices, and in how we use them with others as well. As humans move from nuclear weapons to energy, and from energy to water, and even to medicine. Well, it's sort of like, what? Well, let's create another, and I can assure you it's absolutely stunning what it does and how, and it really answered right now, what kind of technology do we need to have to prevent it? So what could be fake news that this type of machinery produces? As I said, OpenAI have held back the full model, and it's going to be released potentially, and they've just released sort of a medium-sized model a few days ago. And imagine a world where you can create and have created tons and billions of fake news articles very quickly. I now must come to an end, but before I do, I want to show you this. We've spoken about ethics before, and fake news and killer fake news always require that we are talking about, particularly when we're trying to work and inventing behavioral systems, in my opinion, the question, what is it that we want to have for a good life, and how do we design for that? Thank you.